Hello there, everybody. Today is Wednesday in the second week of August, and we are now 96 hours into our experiment with the food grinding rather than composting. Now, we advocate grinding your food and adding it to the compost, and we've often called the incinerator the compost companion for that reason. And we even further advocate using your food grinder and then putting it into the biodigester, which is what we have over here, the Solar Cities IBC tank biodigesters, where you can produce a wonderful slurry for your tower garden or aquaponics or hydroponics or garden experiments, and you get the gas to cook on the stove over there as we do every day. But right now we're doing an experiment to see if it is necessary to have a compost pile or necessary to have a biodigester, and it doesn't seem that it is, and we've been looking at that for over 10 years now, but now we're doing some formal experiments to prove the anecdotes. So what we started 96 hours ago is we started with a section of an IBC tank and we soil in it, and then we poured a bucket and a half of ground up food waste onto that, and then we did the same thing with another section identical of IBC tank, and we didn't inoculate it with soil at all. We just left it as bare plastic, and then we poured a bucket and a half of ground up mixed food waste into that, and that was 96 hours ago. Then the day after that we put in half a bucket of food waste because that's all we had each. And then yesterday we put in, at the 72-hour point, we put in another half bucket of food waste in here and a half bucket of food waste in here. And you can see that the stuff that we put in 96 hours ago is turning black. It's turning into soil. And the stuff that we put in at 48 hours is turning brown. And the stuff that we brought in yesterday is getting more sort of yellowish to brown. So they have the color gradient of the days that we've been putting it in there. And there's no smell, and there's no flies, and there's no indication of any animal vermin trafficking through here. And here it's pretty much gone. I mean, still you can see a little bit from yesterday, this sort of yellowish color there. Now, it may look like vomit to you, but it doesn't smell like vomit because it doesn't seem to have those acids. I guess the butyric acid and propionic acid and whatever all the other acids are, acetic acid. It seems like when you grind it up, the pH gets fairly neutral. And I'll have to test that with a pH meter soon. But right now we're doing a visual assessment every day after 24 hours and then adding more food waste. Although today I'm not going to add more food waste. I'm going to start a new experiment because in conversations with Dr. Brooke Hansen, our sustainable tourism director from our Patel College of Global Sustainability, looking at a paper that we're writing on food security and food waste, one of the complaints people have about not wanting to compost is they don't have space. And I imagine that if people don't have space to compost, they also don't have a little square meter here and a square meter here, even just 1 square meter to do food grinding and placing. They might see that as too much, whereas they might be able to keep a bucket on their porch or even under their kitchen sink. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grind, but I'm just going to keep it in the bucket. And I'm going to keep it in the bucket for days and see, does that smell? Does that attract vermin? Is that a problem? Because here, with that amount of surface area being oxidized, exposed to the air, no problem. No flies, no smells, no cockroaches, no rats, no undesirables. Soil is even better. I'm going to take a chance now and not put anything in this bucket, but I'm going to have holes in the bucket so it can de-water. So I'm going to replace this bucket here, which is what we usually collect in. And I'm going to put this bucket here with the holes, and I'm just going to let it just drain out as I've been doing. This is where the overspill goes anywhere, and you can see down here, every day when I grind, there's always some food waste left over. This is from yesterday, and what's underneath it? Rich black soil, because we let it spill through. So I don't mind it dewatering and getting some food particles down there, but I'm going to leave the holes in there, and I'm just going to now for the next little while, I'm just going to be grinding into this bucket, and then we'll be watching the progress of that. But I won't add any more food waste to it unless I have excess food waste. But I'll record all that. So here we are. We don't make a lot of food waste at home, but here's a good sample of what we've got. All right. We have a lot of avocados, obviously. And there's some gluten-free Oreo cookies that we threw away because we had a hankering for cookies, which we don't normally eat, and we thought we could justify it by having gluten-free. But they're not sugar-free, and that's a mess, and we don't like that, so we just threw them out. And we threw out the mint chocolate cookies as well. And so we're going to be doing no more cookies. We got weak there for a minute. But the avocado pits I'm going to take and save. And let's see, I got some avocado flakes there. Tea bags are in there. Pineapple and stuff today. All right, so I've got to turn on the grinder. So let me do that. There's my grinder. I need to get an automatic switch for this, so bear with me while I find the plug and turn on the grinder. All right, so the grinder's on. And turn on some water. I know you're worried he's putting his hand down. You can put your hand down in the grinder that deep with no problem. Just don't go straight down. Okay. Know your limits. Over here. Of course, because there's holes in the bottom of the bucket, it's draining through. So these husks, seeds all come out, and you're left with these fibrous husks, which I'm just going to toss down there. They will eventually decay as well. The mangoes, they don't go through the incinerator so well. Okay, so what do we have here? Well, obviously the holes are pretty big, and so a lot of the food waste is just around, but the water's going to drain down, and that's fine too, because eventually it's going to clog up here, and then I'm going to fill my bucket, and we'll see what happens. But the point is to see what happens if you just grind and drain. And you could drain down a sink. I should have a bucket with smaller holes that trap the fine particles for the dewatering, because then you could do it in the kitchen sink and just grind and then let it dewater, and then just store that bucket up on the porch, we think. So we'll find out. But that's going to be the test. This is 96 hours in, and thank you for watching, and appreciate your comments, but appreciate even more if you please do try this at home and share your results with us. Do you need to compost? Do you need a biodigester? Well, I say yes, because then you get the wonderful biogas to cook on. But do you really need it? Do you need any of that? Do you need a garden? Just grind up food in your apartment in a bucket and let it sit there. And if so, can you let it sit under the kitchen sink, or can you sit it on the porch, under the stairwell, up on the roof? How do you deal with waste in a dense urban fabric in the built environment best, so that it attracts no smells or vermin and is usefully turning into soil? And grinding seems to be the key, and those are the limits that we're pushing here. Again, 96 hours in, no evidence of insect or other animal vectors even interested in it, and certainly no smell. That's 96 hours of ground up mixed food waste just sitting here. And yes, there was some meat and fat in it, but we're not monitoring how much. So we will see if we have a pulse of meat, does it create a problem? Usually if you have a mixed diet, the pH balances out when you grind it. So we will see. Thanks for watching.